And then we hook here. Now, this is a
Come
very
on,
important
man. This
detail.
hurts already.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. Look
Okay.
at this. He's bragging.
Ay, ay, ay.
So, Chris,
Yeah.
unfortunately, Thursday we lost pro wrestling legend Lanny Poffo. Did you meet Lanny? Did you know Lanny at all?
I met him a couple times, but I didn't know him very well. But I've obviously knew of him, of his family, of Macho, and it's sad. It feels like it's just tough because over the last couple of years, I feel like we've had more loss than my whole life, I think. So it's just kind of, I don't know, it's just different now. Like, I mean, everyone is hard, but it's just, wow, we lost another one, you know. And some, like the Briscoe one was just so tragic to me. It was hard to even look at just because of the family, and then it's just so out of nowhere. But you know, at the same time, you also kind of, you can't help but get, I don't want to say numb to them because they all hurt in different ways, but it's just like you're not. Man, it's hard to get surprised by somebody dying unless it's a Briscoe situation or something like that where it's just completely out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And they're young and able-bodied. But so I don't know. You know, it's like there's a callus developing. And then even before the last couple of years, just being involved with professional wrestling, you guys obviously know the history of it, and so you've seen a lot of people go. And so I mean, it's just one of those things, man. You know, it just sucks. So no, we lost another one, and you know, they never feel good.
At this stage of your life, do you sometimes worry about the career choice you made? I mean, so many guys in your business just get cut short. Do you ever worry
No,
about
because
that?
I had 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the reckless kind of generate. I don't want to say reckless, you know, but like, you know, it was a completely different vibe when I first came in, and you know, the guys I grew up watching and stuff. I mean, it was much more of the rock star lifestyle, is a lot more reckless. And some of them explained it to me like this. It's like, now we know that wrestling is here and it's going to live forever. But back then they didn't know if it was going to be over tomorrow. And that's the way they treated it. And that's the way they live life. But, so I saw that side of it, but I also have seen the side now where, you know, we've cleaned up professional wrestling. We don't have all of these issues. We don't have people passing out, you know, in the locker rooms anymore. And so, and you know, I followed suit, luckily. You know what I mean? Like, I had my early issues in my 20s and stuff like that. But now, I mean, you know, I barely even touch alcohol. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say I'm the picture of health. You know what I mean? But I'm not reckless anymore either. Like, I don't drink. I don't party. I take care of myself. And I think that, you know, some of those past decisions could have done me in. And, you know, knock on wood, I came out luckily without any, I think, long-term damage, at least not yet.
There are wild, obviously, 80s and 90s rock star type stories involving wrestlers partying, the drugs, the women. Was it wild when you first got into the WWE scene? I mean, this is now the age of Cena and Lesnar and Orton. Was it as crazy as you know?
It was nothing. It was nothing like what you heard of the '80s and the '90s. But every once in a while, things got wild, and it was fun. And that's why I'm glad I got to see both, because, and it was just very seldom. Like, the wildest times I can remember in WWE, honestly, were, you know, sometimes the WrestleMania parties, but actually more specifically, it was the tribute, the flight over to the tribute to the troops. I mean, you've heard some of the stories. Like, I mean, you know, just think about it. You know, flight, just wrestlers. You got cases of alcohol, and you know, it was the only time I've ever seen Vince really let his hair down was on those flights, and it was just.
So you say that. So we, you know, obviously the plane ride from hell was on Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah.
In your moments on your flights to Saudi, what, like, any stories that happened on the plane?
It was
equal
similar
to, like,
stuff, but it didn't sound so bad as like the plane ride from hell, because I don't know, that wasn't a commercial flight. That was literally just the wrestlers in the.
It was a wrestler flight. And I don't think I don't think neither Linda or Vince were on a flight, even though people try to report
You
they
know,
were.
the things that stand out in my head from that were there were some things were kind of sucked, but like, there's a lot of funny stuff. You know what I mean? Like Vince instigating a shoot wrestling match between CM Punk and Shelton Benjamin. And then it actually went from Shelton Benjamin to Carlito because of some kind of cross drama there with Maria. So like, yeah, and then, somebody sleeping on a hammock and getting their hammock cut. I'm not gonna say any of the names involved in that. And then,
Well, go back to Punk. Like, did Benjamin just beat out of Punk, and Punk just cried and said, "Let me go and let me sit down and eat popcorn"?
man, I don't know how
Go to
serious.
sleep.
I mean, this is on one of those places you don't even have a lot of room to work with. But I
Right.
mean, from what I remember, I mean, I think they did grapple a little bit, but like nobody's going to beat Shelton Benjamin. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
really.
Like anyway, in that, and it basically was amateur wrestling too. So like, I don't know. And then Vince. I mean, one of the funniest parts was I remember we were in Germany coming back from Afghanistan, and because we would stop there and we would stop at the base, and man, there was this nice restaurant we go to, and everybody was drinking, and it just turned into this big karaoke thing, like led by Vince. He was having such a great time that like it was time to go, and the captain was ready and everything, and they were like threatening, or no, they wanted us to go, and Vince got so hot that he was like threatening to, buy the plane and all kinds. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he did
right.
not. He did not want to leave, and it was just like I don't know. I just never seen.
What,
like,
what was it like performing for the troops? What did it feel like? Was it special for you?
oh yeah, yeah. It's exactly what you might have heard in terms of it being. It's not just people saying it because it sounds like the babyface thing to say. Or actually, this is what Vince said, and this will put it in perspective. Vince would say, before going there, that the tribute to the troops is the biggest thing we do, even I think over WrestleMania, which sounds crazy, right? You're like, what? Like, because WrestleMania is WrestleMania, but like when you actually go there and experience, you understand what he's saying. It's not that like WrestleMania obviously is much more people and everything, but it was a bigger experience than yourself, is what it is. You get there and you realize it doesn't matter how you feel about the war, politics, any of that. It's bigger than you. It's you performing for people who are doing tasks that are, dangerous, sometimes mundane, and it's a different level of gratitude. Like when you wrestle for people and they enjoy it, that's great, but when you get real gratitude from people, which you every once in a while you see in the world, like I go to certain places, like, and that was one of them. Like the tribute to the troops, you could see how grateful they were to have us there, to have us perform, to be able to meet us, and just to take them out of their everyday routine of what they were doing. So it was every bit of all of that.
What did Vince McMahon mean to you, Chris? I mean, how did you look at Vince?
The god of wrestling, essentially. I mean, and that's probably not the best way to put it, you know what I mean? But it really is. I mean, he's the guy. And so when you perceive it like that, yeah, he can be a bit intimidating, and he's got a big presence, obviously. But I mean, yeah, he's just whether you love him or hate him. When Vince had all these difficulties over the last half year, and I'd do autograph signings, and I'd hear fans kind of laying into him, or just kind of wanting to discard him, I'd just be thinking to myself, like, even with my circumstance, like, and I don't have ill feelings or anything, like, things didn't go perfect when I was there, obviously, but to not at least, he's given so much, whether regardless of how you feel about him. I mean, a lot of all of our fandom is based on what he's given us as far as these classic, and I mean, and he gambled everything in WrestleMania 1 and 2 to make it work. I mean, I just can't, he is the guy over, you can say Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, Hulk Hogan. I mean, Vince is up there alone, right?
Yeah.
Like because what's the common denominator in all of that? All those guys, Vince.
Yep.
How do you feel about the allegations that were against him? Did it bother you, or could you not give?
I mean, it sucks. I don't know. When you hear all these allegations from all these wrestlers, the Me Too movement in general, it sucks to hear. But like, I will, I mean, I was just relieved that I know that, there's nobody that's going to come out of the woodwork and say that I did anything inappropriate. And if they did, they'd be completely full of.
There you go.
Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on here.
No, you
So
can.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I looked at all this like, no, I've looked at, I'm not going to say Vince's was surprising. I don't know if any of them were surprising because coming up in professional wrestling was a rude awakening to the realities of the world very quickly, just as far as how guys are and whether you're in a family or not. And that's not all guys, obviously, but it was, it was a rude awakening to all that. And, to me, again, it sucks, but it was like kind of nothing that I wasn't either kind of knew or suspicious of. But again, I just looked at it like, all right, well, this ain't going to be an issue for me. So I just watched and.
But I mean, you're a good-looking guy, right? And you're with this internal family, right? To me, it's kind of difficult not to get involved with someone, I would think. How were you able to stay away from it? If you did, I don't know if you did or not.
Oh, you mean, well, you're talking about like getting
I don't
involved
mean
with somebody
I don't mean
at work?
sexually harassing someone or forcing someone. I'm saying actual relationship with another female.
Well, no, it
within the
does. It
company.
happens a lot, but like it doesn't happen. Like that doesn't mean everybody dates that somebody within the business. You know what I mean? Like there's, I have a lot of friends who have been in long-term relationships with people in the business, and I'm just kind of happy to say that I haven't, just because it seems like it would be very difficult. It's difficult if you're in two different promotions for obvious reasons, and then it's difficult even if you're in the same promotion because then you're now with that person all of the time. And I think that's a problem in itself because I think it's a healthy thing, obviously, to have some time. Like when I was on the road with WWE, it was difficult to be gone that long. Like I had a girl I got engaged to, but at the same time, it was almost like, man, every time I came home, it was so exciting. You have time to miss the person, and then there's a lot to catch up on, and I don't know. So it's I always realize from that point, maybe it's not great to be gone 4 days, but it's good to have some time away.
You were in the WWE at the same time as Ashley Massaro, correct?
Yeah.
Did you have a relationship with Ashley at all? I mean, relationship like as a friend? Did you know her?
Yeah. She was very nice. She traveled with me, and she rode with me and Orton a couple of times. Just
So,
she's good.
unfortunately, she took her life, as we all know. But there is a story about when she was in Kuwait that she claimed that she was sexually assaulted. Did she ever mention that to you or
No, but
anybody?
we were. I don't think we had a relationship where she would bring that up to me. We weren't like close on that
Were
level.
you shocked when you heard that story of her
That
allegations?
story, I don't remember the details of it now, but I have heard that story, and it was a bit alarming, that one, and shocking to me. Like that one did surprise me, but I don't remember the details off the top of my head, but I remember it's pretty awful, whatever was said.
Did you ever notice she was having these type of mental breakdowns or problems, or she always seemed upbeat while
No,
wrestling?
but like it's hard to tell. Sometimes you can't tell with people up there, or you're so wrapped up in kind of what you're doing, maybe, or like you really kind of put on a mask. I think a lot of times when you're working there, like you almost have to be. I don't want to say you walk in and you be like I have to be the masterpiece, Chris Masters, from the minute I go to leave, but you kind of have to, you know what I mean, or at least you have to, you don't always want to show vulnerability. You know what I mean? That's not always, especially in the locker room I came up in where it was guys who were, not the video game generation that we have now, but again, the more rough, kind of rough and tough, pay your dues generation. And
But when you reflect back, right, because you have this internal family, we talked earlier about Poffo and Briscoe, for example. Do you think to yourself after you find out she took her life, like, man, did I not see something? Could I have helped her? Or is it like, hey, look, I didn't have that sort of relationship with her?
it was both probably, because I don't know. I just don't think it's just one of those things. You know what I mean? It's hard to help somebody when they're having issues that are that deep. You would have to really be close to that person to help them in that, you know what I mean? Like, and because, they're not going to open up to you about stuff like that. So like, I just don't feel like I ever got to a point where, if me and Ashley were close enough then, or a lot closer, then I would have felt exactly what you were saying. I felt like, man, why didn't I? But like, I was just kind of never in a position to know that like, oh man, that she was really suffering from that. So I just, I know that there's nothing that I could have done. But if anybody that close to me did it, that was really close, that you would almost hope that you would able to see the signs And that would only happen through having conversation or seeing that person every so often or whatever.
How about Benoit? What'd you think about that? Did you see any signs with Chris Benoit?
I I don't think it's a big problem saying this. I mean, I pretty much assumed right away that Chris did what he did, and it's not because he was a bad guy, really, but I couldn't see. I was worried about it. I didn't know for sure. I was worried about it. I didn't see what else could have happened. I didn't see somebody kind of just killing the whole family. So it was shocking, and all I remember was hoping that it wasn't him who did it, and then finding out the next morning it was him who did it, and then just being like, and I just always kind of reflect back, and instances like this have really shown me to trust my gut, especially now at this age. When I shook his hand, there was an intense energy to him that felt very uncomfortable to me, and I've now learned to trust this instinct like wholeheartedly, especially at this age now more than ever. It's not something anybody has to say to you or do. Sometimes you just feel a bad energy about somebody when they're in a room or whatever. There's an intensity about them.
So there was this bad energy you felt from
something.
him.
There was an intensity to him when I shook his hand and looked into his eyes that just made me, I don't know, there were just questions like, whoa.
Interesting.
Whoa, that's crazy.
And like,
That's cool.
it's just overall, but I, like everybody else, I mean, man, you look at I respect his work and all of that, but
Sure.
But do you think when something happens like that, like, you still see these wrestling fans, I love Chris Benoit. Do you think at some point, like when you do something like that, you've just washed away everything that was positive about you, period? Like,
Well,
you
I
respect
think
his
everything has
wrestling,
an
but
asterisk. It's hard because now it's hard to talk about Benoit without some degree thinking about all of this.
Sure.
Like even if WWE hadn't wiped the history book of him, it doesn't matter because anytime we bring up even Chris's work, you're just kill his family. Like it's
Yep.
just, I just don't think there's anything we can do about it. Like he kind of did it to himself through what he did, where like
Yeah.
you can't praise him without also like it's like you can't like think about it. Anybody who brings up anything about him, it's like you almost feel like you can't without referring to oh man, but
Right.
or at least even thinking it.
Sure.
Well,
Well, like and I'm again, he wasn't a bad guy, man. It was just there was an intensity to him
there was something missing.
that was uncomfortable, and then and I'm not saying I encounter people like that all the time. It's just more I've learned to trust my instincts on like if there's an energy about somebody that feels off, like even if they're nice to me, I'll take a back step and all.
So on the other end, and I'm not trying to compare this, but like you worked with John Cena, right? Which, we consider probably one of the final all-time greats in the industry.
Yeah.
But again, we're just fans. We know nothing. What was your feeling when you met John Cena? And is it true to the rumors that John would try to hold back people such as yourself because of your look and the possibility of you taking his spot?
I would have never thought that at the time. Like, because at that time, I just was like, dude, you're the world champion. You're John Cena. Like, and even when people would say that about Hunter, and I always thought the same thing. I was just like, man, you're Hunter. But you look back at certain instances, and you could make a case for that. But like, still in my mind, it still refers back to like, man, but you know what I mean? Like, what do you have to worry about? Because you've done so. It's hard to look at some of the guys who've had that much success and think that they should worry about anybody. But like at the same time, you're almost being foolish to think that there's not some of that. And like if you read between the lines, and now like I can look back. It's funny because you get older and you do get smarter, man.
Can you elaborate on an instance where, like, you're looking back, you go, wait a minute, yeah, this guy did do this crap to me?
Well, I don't want to create clickbait or anything. Like, I know you want me to point
No.
something specific.
That's not the game we played. I'm just wondering,
But I just, I can know with Cena, for instance. But, like, Cena also had reasons not to like me because I can understand, like, we were very different. We were oil and water. I mean, he's a Massachusetts guy. I'm a California guy. And, like, and also, there were things about my work ethic I'm sure that he questioned, and probably rightfully so at that point. You know what I mean? Like, because I've, there are certain points where, I've grown a lot, and I can look back at myself sometimes and be like, oh, you know what I mean? There was a lot more you could have been given at certain times that you didn't, unfortunately. You know what I mean? So, but like at the same time, we just didn't mesh. But like, I just had a difficult time because I worked with HBK, who was my all-time favorite wrestler, and like we worked so great together. And then I would work with Cena around the same time, and it would almost flip-flop. I'd be in tag matches or singles, and it was just such a task with Cena though. And Cena would try to call me out for it, and I even remember Sean coming to my defense one time and being like, "Well, I had no problem with him," which I was like, "Thank you." But I think also a thing with Cena is I think he's very, very. Even if you watch the show, he's very OCD. And like I think he would get like that in wrestling matches, especially if he wasn't working with someone that was better than him, like a Shawn or Triple H or something like that. So when he was working with me, it's kind of like, yeah, I could have a great match with Shawn, because Shawn was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and he could work with anybody. But like with Cena, like, yeah, he had a little more experience than me, but not much. And yeah, he was over as hell, but his overness wasn't a reflection of where he was at in the artistry of professional wrestling yet.
Sure.
So
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I don't want to say it was the blind leading the blind, but it was just like, there was no Shawn Michaels in there to kind of, help things out when need be. And then with John Cena being that OCD,
Right.
you know.
But what's so amazing, right? It's great that you say this, but it's like Shawn Michaels, who had this huge reputation of being probably one of the biggest pricks in the industry and would hold people down. You saw a different side of Shawn Michaels. You saw the change Shawn Michaels then.
Oh yeah, and thank God, because it would be so disappointing, because you always hear the saying about you don't want to meet your idols and stuff. I don't know what it would have been like to meet the first Shawn, and I can't even wrap my head around that, because that was the one, I grew up idolizing that.
Right,
that
right.
guy.
Right.
But I am happy that I was able to. The work experience I had with him was like so pleasant, man. Like it was just. But I kind of threw it out there right from the get-go. Like I let him know pretty early on that he was my guy, and I think I recited some of his promos on him and stuff like that. And it was more just because I just wanted him to know, hey, if I say anything stupid, that might be, because when you're young at that age, there were a lot of little things. There's an etiquette, and there's a lot of little things that can get you heat, especially when you look the way I did, and you're getting a push. And so, like, I would constantly find myself like stepping in my own, like saying stuff that wasn't even that bad, but like it rubs somebody the wrong way and gets you heat. So I was just like, I just wanted to make sure with him, like, hey, I didn't say literally this, but it was me kind of establishing like I have the utmost respect for you. So if I do or say anything stupid, just know it's not, you are my guy. Please just, you know what I mean? Just know that going into this. But like we never had any issues, man. It was like so much fun. Like I can't even tell you the different little challenges that I ended up having to go through working him, because we worked all over the world, and there were always like various. Like I remember there was one match where they kind of challenged me, him and Nate, to not bump him, not even one time in the whole match. Oh, and this was funny. I remember walking into the locker room one time, and Sean and Nate are dressing, and I walk into the locker room. I'm like, so we got a bump in HBK or non-bump in HBK tonight? And Ric Flair just couldn't believe it. Like he was like, he was like dying laughing, but like it was just more like how, like, cause I'd worked with both of them, but I don't think he hadn't heard some of the one-on-one conversations I had with Sean. So it was one of those things like, this freaking kid is talking to you like that. What the heck? He couldn't, and he made such a big deal about it. But little things like that. And then I remember one time Sean's brace we were in Ireland, and his brace broke, his knee brace. So we had to work a match in Dublin, Ireland, where we didn't run him at all. And like the only time we ran him is that one little sequence for the flipper, the reverse. And then, another thing was just, it got to the point pretty early on where Sean just let me kind of be the quarterback of the match and call the whole match, which was crazy. I mean, like I couldn't even really. It was hard to call the match without phrasing it every kind of thing I'd call it in the form of a question because of who he was.
Right.
But like, man, so I mean, you couldn't ask, if you were to work with your childhood hero, you couldn't ask for a better work experience.
We have the iconic Chris Masters in studio. And boy, I got to tell you, I want to thank all the fans who have donated. The Pharaoh will be attempting to break out of the Master Lock Challenge, and all donations are going to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. First off, I got to say, Chris, you're huge. You know what? You don't realize how huge you are
Try to stand up, right?
until you stand up. Holy cow.
Yeah, people just don't realize 6'4", 260 pounds still. So I mean, it's what pro wrestlers are supposed to weigh. And
thank you, sir. And that's why I love you in NWA, and I never want to see you in AEW. I want to see you either WWE or stay in the NWA. But first off, the Pharaoh's been good enough to accept the challenge. He will try to break out of the Master Lock Challenge. But before we get to it, got to ask you a question. Being an old school wrestling fan, right, and you loved wrestling, do you remember the Cobra Clutch Challenge?
Oh, boy.
Back in the day. With Slaughter.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that's probably one of my oldest memories.
So I always wish the Master Lock Challenge was going to get to that level. Was that the plan behind the Master Lock Challenge? Was to have you weekly, like constantly put down guys until you just get into that big feud with the guy who finally breaks it?
I'm not sure, honestly. I don't know if in our day and age we could have drawn it out that long, because I think it went a good year and a half or something without getting broken, which already seems like a long time at that point. But, I did a lot of stuff to derail. You know what I mean?
I got you.
A lot happened in that block of time, so it could have gone any which way, I imagine.
Well, I want to remind you, Chris, and I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but if my partner, who I love dearly, breaks out of this,
love dearly.
Your career is over.
It's done.
And I'm going to have to call you and hire you at my place.
What are you
doing? So you got one choice.
No, I'm leaving the country.
You're leaving so it's either break them in half. I know there's money on the line for children, but it's either break them in half or lose your career.
Do it for the kids.
I'm going to go to Southern Africa or something.
All right, Pharaoh, are you ready? The Master Lock Challenge.
Okay, so this is we're gonna go through this step by step, though, right?
Go ahead.
We've got him placed. We've got our victim in the chair.
Victim.
Like so.
What the?
Now he's already not starting this out right. He's got a hat on, sunglasses. It's already put it.
Chris, he's already disrespecting you.
No, but I'm just saying it puts you're at vulnerability.
There's your hat. Hold on, it's your
He's getting rid of everything. Okay, you don't got to get rid of anything else.
Yeah,
Stop
right.
there.
Are you sure? Wait a second.
No.
You're kind of put together kind of well.
No, you
Wait,
keep
hold
that
on.
on. You keep that on. We're good there. Okay,
Man,
so
this
our
is no
next
fun
step
at all.
This is a very important part. Okay, so we hook under here.
Oh,
Right?
Jesus Christ.
We hook here, and then we hook here. Now this is a
Come
very
on,
important
man. This
detail.
hurts already.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. Look
Okay.
at this. He's bragging.
But here's what's important. You gotta hook the fingers like this.
God almighty.
You can't just interlace them. So you gotta hook.
Wait,
them
hold
like
on. My
this.
beer gut. My beer gut.
Oh
Wait.
boy. And
Ah,
let's go ahead and stand up.
Jesus.
Go ahead and stand up. All right, there we go.
Get out.
All right.
Yeah, we're good. Ow. New
So
day.
now
We're
what
good.
you do?
We're good.
Yeah,
I guess we're not good. Oh,
See that? You just
Jesus, God, there
push
goes
the
my
head
head.
forward,
Stop it.
and it cuts off blood flow to the head. And
on,
what
man.
happens is they
jeez.
start to pass out
This is a bad
slowly
idea.
but surely and turn this color purple. That tends to be a bit disturbing. And this is the point. Yep. See, you don't
It's
hear
over.
much.
You finished them.
Got very quiet.
Wow.